How are we, folks? Welcome. We are live. This is officially the first of our 2019 Unity V. So we're thrilled, very excited, and it's of course the first one that we're doing in our brand new studio. You may have caught a few of the test runs yesterday. It was a bit messy, but we're rolling, and we've got an epic guest today and a great friend of mine, Mr. Benjamin Pakulski, and we're going to be talking about mindset, because that's something that I know he is absolutely amazing with, and also really just some of his recent experiences. He just went through his paces with a workout with Rad, who I've also got here joining us live. How did that go?
Humbling, I guess. Yeah, I mean, amazing, right? I know that I need it, which is why I was so eager to come and work with you guys. And it's definitely something I've made a bigger piece of my life. Every athlete, or at least every bodybuilder, at some point experiences pain, whether that be physical or mental, and oftentimes it's to do with your inability to move through the range that you need to be able to control and access for what you're trying to accomplish. So if you're sitting out there trying to build a body or ultimately be able to move and live a healthy, rigorous life, movement is a huge part of that. So very grateful to have Rad put me through the paces.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, it was good, man. You did, my sort of idea of a bodybuilder is someone that's just really stiff and that can't move that well at all, and you surprised me, man. You got some good flexibility.
You know, and I used to be much better. When I was competitive, I think I was better because it was a daily practice, right? And I made sure that I had control. My thing is not just mobility, it's control of those ranges, right? I don't want to be able to go somewhere that I can't control, so I was very conscious of how do you mobilize and then stabilize and then strengthen, this natural progression. So
this was the big reason, the big element of your coaching that captivated me when we first met during your muscle camp was that I had a lot of mates who called themselves bodybuilders, but most of them were very dysfunctional in the way that they moved. And when I watched you moving in that, in even just demonstrating the full range of movement of the biceps and things like that, I was like, shit, man, this dude really knows what he's on about. And you could take your body there.
Sure.
There was no
bodybuilding
resistance.
Itself is dysfunctional, right? That's what it is. I mean, ultimately, you're trying to train an aesthetic, not a function. But Rad and I had a great conversation just a few minutes ago about how these things could and should be a natural marriage. It should be a natural integration, yet nobody's doing it. And I think there'd be a beautiful marriage between what I do and what you guys do. Because ultimately, just because I'm muscular, muscle bound, doesn't mean I have to be that way. Doesn't mean that's part of what it should be. It's like, well, no, if I train this and this at the same time, you should be able to maintain massive amounts of stability and mobility with hypertrophy. Is there a point of diminishing returns? I don't know. Nobody's ever tested it, right? But there's certainly bodybuilders out there who are very mobile. At some point, tissue gets in the way of certain ranges, but for the most part, every range that you have access to, you should have control of.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely.
I've seen some bodybuilders that make me look tight. I've seen dudes that are real flexible.
Oh, yeah?
Who was the guy that used to go up and do the big routine and do the splits and stuff like that?
Half the guys can do the splits now,
Yeah,
but that's
really?
one range, right?
That's
not like you guys talk about. That's the idea of I'm going to stretch my hamstring in this plane and this plane, but not circular plane, right?
Yeah.
And that's the difference. The integration of being able to control all those ranges is very important, and that's something that I teach in my warm up. It's I'm not trying to get you, the idea of a dynamic warm-up to me is ridiculous, like swinging your hip or something like that. People were doing that for a long time. I'm like, that, for me, doesn't prepare you for anything. That just swinging your leg. What we're after is, how do I gain control of all these ranges, which is go there, stay there. Now, go a little further, stay there, go a little, so accessing all those, 180 degrees of, or whatever, 120 degrees of hip rotation.
Yep.
Did you like that warm-up that we did out there before the session?
Great. I loved it, actually.
Yeah.
And I know you guys make that available to some people, and that's the first thing I said is where do I get this? How do I make sure that for me, time is of the essence of you guys. So if I had a 20 to 30 minute routine that I could do first thing in the morning after my meditation, or a 20 to 30 minute routine I could do before I train, that not only improved scapular and hip mobility, but improved stability, I win, right? I'm people don't really, as you get older, and you guys are my age, so 35 plus, I think, things just start to get a little tight. And I
Yeah.
still feel good, but just a little tight. Like,
Yeah.
it takes a little longer to warm up. If I had that consistent daily routine that just locked in, like, oh, now my emotions feel better. I don't feel those aches and pains and bumps and bruises that are kind of characteristic of aging.
Yeah.
I thought you were younger than me, but I couldn't see in the light before. Now I can see the little
Right?
grays in your
There you
eyes,
go.
and I can
No,
see
there's
it.
no grays there, man.
Yeah.
Mate, that's why I've just taken mine off.
Yeah.
It was
Well,
like,
The good thing is, Ben, is that the routine that I taught you, the way that we teach it online, it's actually only 15 minutes. So you can get it done. You get that whole thing done in 15 minutes. You set a timer for 3 more rounds. It's beautiful.
And I was definitely throwing some questions out there just to slow you down a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
bit. So if I could actually do 15 minutes of work in a row, it'd be great, right? More than adequate. I think, I mean, if anyone hasn't checked out your stuff, obviously if they're watching your YouTube channel, they have, but they haven't, like, go, because, I don't know, perfect warm-up for everybody, but pretty damn close.
Well, I used to do, well, yeah, I mean, look, when I see something that's better, we change what we do.
Right.
So we're always evolving with what we do. And I used to do, my personal warm-ups used to take about 40 minutes. And then we were doing warm-ups in the class that went for about 20 minutes or so. And I'm reading a book at the moment called Overcoming Gravity, which is just reminding me of a whole bunch of things. And the author, I can't remember his name, but it's all about body weight training and stuff. And this guy's a highly achieved gymnastics coach. And he talks about warm-ups shouldn't be more than about 12 or 13 minutes. So we try and keep our warm-up down now to 12 minutes.
and why is that? Because we want to explain that to the audience.
Because it's not the purpose of the workout.
Yeah.
I just realised my microphone's in the wrong spot.
Yeah. We also didn't turn the top lights on, but that's all right. Does it look all right? Yeah, awesome.
We're getting used to all this stuff, aren't we? We can turn them on.
We got a green door in the background, folks. It's like this is like literally hot off the press. This place we finished building yesterday.
Well, the reason why is that the purpose of the workout isn't the warm up.
Yeah,
The purpose of the workout is the workout, and the purpose of the warm up is just to prepare you for the warm up.
Right.
So, if a warm up goes for too long, it can have a negative effect because it can start to fatigue you a little bit, and you want to finish that warm up. You want full blood circulation to your muscles. You want vasodilation. You want synovial fluid, in the joints. You want everything. You want the central nervous system's ability to activate the muscles, really quickly. He talks about how an increased heart rate increases cross-bridge coupling time. So, the actin and myosin, the cross-bridge coupling happens quicker, which creates quicker muscle contractions. But then if you go too far, you start to get fatigue, and then you try and do your first set, and you can't lift as much weight as you could. So
one of the things you talked about during our workout, Rad, was that I think is important for the audience to know is the two kind of hubs for strength and stability, or maybe the tests are grip strength and core stability and strength, right? So I think those need to be a big part of people's warm-up, and I write those into my warm-up, is like, how do I, and I love the stuff that you did with like the wrist activation and strengthening this, because like, especially with what I do, if I'm trying to maintain output at my limbs, I need this to be unbendable. I need this to be unbendable, and ultimately this to have great mobility and stability. So that's one thing that people miss, is if they're trying to get output here, well, I need to have this thing strong. If it's flaccid and weak, you can't have output by deductive reasoning. And same with this, like, your trunk and core is the foundation of all output. If this thing isn't moving and stable, so mobility and stability, you can't have maximum output. And I think those are the two things that people miss in the warm-up. They don't have a thought process. Objectively, I want to prepare my body for what I'm about to do as specifically as possible. And then, also I want to make sure my trunk and my grip or wrists are really primed.
Yeah, it's awesome to hear you say that, because we create this stuff and we believe it, but it's really good to hear someone with your kind of experience.
Right, so one of the questions I had for you, and I'd love for you to dig into, man, is like, you mentioned your influence from Ido Portal, and I'd love to hear like how you've evolved his thought process, or what you've learned from him, and how you've evolved it into make it your own.
Yeah, man. Cal, can you just put a timer on, just so I know not to...
This could go for a while.
I'm a huge fan of the guy, and I think he's amazing, and like, I see myself going that way, but obviously at 275, 125 kilos, like, it's going to be a while before I really get there, but I really see myself going down that path of like integrating strength and mobility. I don't know that I'll ever be Ido. Ido is Ido, right? But how do you integrate?
No one will ever be Ido, but no one will ever be Ben Pakulski either.
Right.
And I've seen this, I've watched everything on the guy, because I just fell in love with his methods and what he does when I trained with him. And there's a really cool little 1.5 minute video on YouTube where he talks about the secret to longevity, and he talks about your individual nature and that we've all got these experiences that create us as being us. And one of the biggest problems that so many people have is that they're constantly comparing themselves to other people.
Sure.
And I mean, I was guilty of that when I was younger, and I'm sure in the bodybuilding community you've had that yourself.
Yep.
And I used to look at myself and think, oh man, you know, why can't I make my body look like this? And one day you have to just come to this point where you realize, well, I'm me and they're them, and I will never, ever, ever look or be able to do what that person can do because they move just completely differently. You know, it's really amazing. So my experience started, my background is in martial arts, so I'm 40 now. I did martial arts when I was a kid. Yanni and I both did, but I wouldn't accredit it towards who I am now. I'd say I started martial arts when I was 17. That's when I really sort of said, okay, I'm going to do this. I did that probably until I was 30, and I joined the army, got out when I was 34, and then I came back and became a personal trainer again with Yanni, and we were working towards opening Unity Gym. And for the first time I thought, well, I better start learning about weightlifting and stuff. If I'm going to be a personal trainer, you know, I'm going to have to do it. And so I started training with Yanni, and for a year we did, he taught me about bodybuilding and strength training.
The little bit that I knew.
He passed on to me what he learned from you, and we did that for about a year. And I, just by eating well and having protein and creatine and BCAAs, I got from, I think, 84 to 90 kilos in a year. But it wasn't really for me. I wasn't passionate about it, and I never really gave myself to it. And I started trying to play around with a little bit of gymnastics and stuff, and just wanting to learn about it, trying something new. And I did it for about 3 months, and then Yanni goes, oh, I bought this workshop with this guy, Ido Portal. You should probably go to it if you want to do gymnastics. And I knew nothing about it. I'd never even heard of the name before. So I went there, and he went around the room and got us all to say why we're here and what our background was. And I said, oh, I've just started learning gymnastics. I've got a martial arts background, so I'm here to learn more about gymnastics. And he looked at me and shook his head and said, this isn't gymnastics, bro. It was really funny. So anyway, I did the movement workshop with him, and it was like nothing I'd ever done, man. Like we did these, he taught us spinal waves, you know, like that stuff that I was teaching you in the warm-up where you're learning, and I just couldn't do it. He got us to do these things where you have to, like I can do it now, where you have to move your neck like this, and I was going, I just couldn't move it. I just couldn't get it.
No neural connection.
There was just no ability. Like I was like struggling to even get a centimeter, and you know, years later I've got, not compared to a dancer, but I've got great movement compared to the average person. And what really, I said this during our workout, what really blew my mind was I was not better at anything than these guys in this room, and I wasn't used to that. I was used to going to workshops and I could always fall back on, I could jump better than these people, or I'm more flexible or whatever, but these guys were just better than me at everything. And it was really amazing for me. It was really eye-opening. And the big message that I took from that was I walked in there a martial artist. No, I walked in there an ex-martial artist and a current gymnast. I was doing gymnastics, and that's what I was doing. Because I was taught through martial arts, you know, you have to train for 5 hours a day if you want to get good, and I could barely find 3 hours. So I would reject everything else. If there was something that I would have benefited from that Yanni could teach me, I rejected it because it wasn't part of my martial arts training and I didn't have the time for it. And Ido talked about the idea of dogma, and of one of the hardest things that you'll ever do as a practitioner. He calls people practitioners. You're a bodybuilder, but you're a practitioner of you know, being a bodybuilder, or you're a dancer, whatever it is. And he spoke about this idea of freeing yourself from the dogma of your practice. So the dogma being other people's beliefs. So the dogma in Kung Fu is you don't do boxing and you don't do Jiu-Jitsu because Kung Fu is a traditional martial art and it's better because of X, Y, and Z. And you certainly don't do gymnastics or whatever because that takes you away from your practice. And I walked out of there going, no, I don't need to be a gymnast. I can just be a mover. So I can actually still practice a little bit of my martial arts and a little bit of what I've learned from gymnastics and a little bit of what I've learned from weightlifting from Yanni, and I can do that, and that's okay. And that was really weird. It was a liberating experience for me. I was like, wow, I don't have to be one of these things, you know? So how much, back to your question, how much influence what we do now? Everything. It made me come back and question everything that I did. And I spoke to Yanni at the time. We were running programs. We were either running fat loss, strength, or hypertrophy programs. And it was, what do you want to do? Which goal do you have? This is the program that we're going to do. And we wrote personalised programs for people, but you came under one of those three categories.
We pigeonhole people,
Yeah,
you know.
pigeonhole them. You either wanted to lose fat, you either were here to lose weight, build strength, or build muscle. And I spoke to Yanni, and I didn't know the answer, but all I knew was I just had this strong feeling in my heart that what we were doing wasn't right. And then we went over, we decided to go and train with a good friend of ours who I went to school with, Aaron McKenzie. Check him out after this, he's unbelievable. He's just over at Bondi. And he's been doing this kind of stuff. He opened his gym 5 years before us, and he became a personal trainer 5 years before us. So he was just a little bit ahead of us in his career. And we went over with him, and he took us through a warm-up that was similar to what I took you through. Different, he's got his own way of doing things. But he took us through this 15-minute all-over body warm-up, and then we did strength training. And we'd never done that before. We'd never, like, normally stretching is this kind of thing where we used to tell our clients, look, you should do a little bit of stretching before your workout. But there's no emphasis placed on it in the hour that we're training people. So if you don't place emphasis on it, the client doesn't place emphasis on it, and they just never do it. And we came back going, wow, maybe we could come up with some kind of warm-up that we do for 15 minutes that everybody does in the class. And that was the birth of it. Again, back to what you said about how much of Ido has influenced this. What he does is, in my experience, he does movement, and some of the stuff that he does is so radical and different to anything that anybody else is doing that if we try to teach it, I think
so at that extreme level that we spoke
sure.
about, you know, you've got mainstream, you've got unique or innovative, and then you've got extreme on the outside. And there's a extreme in that direction and an extreme in that direction. There would be an extreme mainstream, you know, like right. I only do something if there's 10 years of scientific literature about it, and you know, if it's not been peer reviewed by 1,000 different people that are you know in good journals, that's like extreme that way. And then there's Ido extreme, you know, like that's sort of there's a lot of people like that, but yeah.
I mean, it's like some of the stuff that we didn't do that I've learned from Ido is all the crawling and moving along the ground, and even different ways of hanging, like brachiation, where you're swinging around on the bars and it's got nothing to do with pulling. It's just swinging and hanging and rotating around. And I mean, that's just one tiny element. Like the depth that he goes into this stuff is on another level, man, like beyond my understanding of it yet, because he's been researching it and been obsessed with it for a lifetime. But we drew back a little bit from that because what we identified, the majority of what people need, and even ourselves, is strength and mobility. Those are like when I was trying to do all these moves that I was watching Ido and his students do, and I would try for 6 months and I would get better at it and I could do it and I could post a cool YouTube video. But what it came back to, the reason why I wasn't getting better, is strength and mobility, just a combination of the two. So we stripped our program back and we made it more about straight up raw strength and raw mobility, with a goal that when people get strong enough and mobile enough, we start teaching them higher movement skills. So we try to leave no stone unturned. We create mobility in every joint. I mean, what we did today was just upper body and spine mobility. So we do spine every day. Doesn't matter if it's upper or lower body, because you know the spine is the backbone of your body, of course. And then when we do
no pun intended.
No pun intended. When we do a lower body workout, we do lower body mobility before the workout. And then the goal is that when people get strong enough and when people get flexible enough, we move into some of the cooler, more out there stuff that I learned from Ido.
Very cool.
Yeah, so I hope that.
That was the short answer too, folks.
That actually was the real short answer.
That's great though.
Yeah. But that's the thing, like admittedly when he came back, like I had the majority of my training, like if I could say who had the biggest influence on me was the late Charles Poliquin and a friend of ours, Tony Battaji, who originally brought Charles out, and Charles had a huge influence on Tony. Tony was sort of my mentor and trainer for a while. So I was quite like, you know, you know Charles quite well, or you knew Charles quite well, so you would know his style of sort of training and coaching, and it's very methodical, very strength and conditioning oriented. So, you know, when Rad came back with all these crazy concepts from Ido Portal, initially I resisted a lot of it. You know, I was like, no way, man, we cannot get people doing that. We can't get people crawling on the floor. We can't, like, people are just going to go, what the fuck is going on here? And so there
And a
were,
lot of people did.
and a lot of people did, you know, yeah. But because our clientele was used to the way I'd been structuring our programming, up until that point, I'd designed most of the programs, you know. And we'd also just sent Richard. Richard came out of the army. Guys, Richard's behind producing the show, just in case you're unaware of who I'm pointing to over there. He just came out of the military after serving overseas, and I put him through all of these internships to really level up his strength and conditioning knowledge. And then we had him doing Ido Portal stuff, so the two of us were initially rejecting it. But we found a real sweet spot where there were a lot of elements of his coaching that we really, first of all, his ethos we resonated with a lot. You know, the concept of movement, and that's really what sparked something for Rad and I, because we always knew that, you know, there's always an element of your training that's very aesthetically driven.
Sure.
And that's in human nature. You can't really fight that. But I suffered a little bit of emotional sort of up and down with depression, and I found that when I was chasing that body image goal, it really started to affect my psychology, because I was comparing myself to dudes.
You can never get to where you're happy.
That's
right?
exactly right.
I was one of the top 10 in the world, and you're still not happy.
Yeah,
so you're chasing a moving target.
That's exactly right, you know, and I started to think, shit, you know, like I've got to do it different, and I also started to find that I was becoming less and less motivated to train like that. And we spoke about this the other day. We got families now, and we're you know, practically married and all that sort of thing. And I was like, I've got to find something else to get me out of bed in the morning and hit the gym, you know, and keep moving.
I'll say one last thing to wrap up, unless you've got any more questions about this, but the idea of how much did Ido influence us. The split that I told you about, bent arm, lower body, straight arm, I learned that from Ido. I'd never heard of that before. Since learning it from Ido, I've seen it in other places, like in the Overcoming Gravity book that I'm reading. It's he talks about, that's one of the possible splits that he talks about in there, but I hadn't heard about that before. So yeah, that's a big thing.
Yeah, I think speaking to what you said, Yanni, that a lot of people men, I don't know, I can't speak for women, but live that reality of you hit, like, you know, you train through your 20s, it's usually an aesthetic goal, and at some point in your 30s, maybe it's later, maybe it's earlier, you have some awareness of like, I don't really want to get bigger anymore. I just want to be, you know, in my framing of it, like what my objective is for my life, and I frame my podcast around this, is brilliant mind, resilient body. And, you know, resilient to me means like being able to move the way I want, run when I want, jump when I want, lift, you know, all this integration of resilience, whatever that means to you.
Yep.
And, you know, ultimately keeping yourself not just like resistant to disease and illness, like, no, I want to be optimized. You know, I kind of envision it like a pyramid. Most people live at the bottom of the pyramid. I want to be at the top of the pyramid. You know, most people are kind of suboptimal. We want to first bring them to like baseline.
Yep.
And then once you've reached baseline, now let's start pushing performance, or sorry, let's start optimizing a little bit.
Yep.
And then once you've optimized, then and only then can you push performance, right? Because you can't push performance at a level of baseline. You have to push above baseline, optimize the body, and then aesthetic changes come, then performance improvements come, right?
Yep.
So I kind of envision it like this pyramid.
Yep.
So
that's awesome.
and I want to live at the top of the pyramid. You know, ultimately I want to be able to do all of these things, and I'm not there yet because I'm so recently removed from professional bodybuilding. That may be an excuse, but like moving toward, yes, I want to be able to do a workout with Rad and Ido. Yes, I want to be able to do a 600, or let's call it a 300 kilo deadlift. You know, like that kind of stuff. Like, how do I create that body? And ultimately, you know, it's really just building, you know, an Army Special Forces kind of mentality, right?
Yeah.
It's not that extreme, maybe, but like I want to be able to do all those things, and, you know, always be prepared for whatever is thrown. And for me, it's not being prepared for battle; it's being prepared for adventure.
Yeah.
Where, like, I want my life to be an adventure. I want to be able to climb a mountain on demand. I want to be able to, you know, to jump out of an airplane. I want to be able to do some scuba, like whatever, right? Whatever comes at you, like I want to be able to do it. Maybe martial arts, whatever it is, you know.
Have you? Can I dive deeper into that mindset,
Sure.
because that's something that I wanted to talk about. I promised the audience a little bit of mindset stuff, and considering that you made it to the top 10 in your field in the world, you've certainly achieved a higher level of success that most people do. Is that something you've always had since being a kid? The
No,
mindset,
so
or
it's
how
funny.
did you cultivate that?
Yeah. So I grew up in maybe the polar opposite family, right? So no one in my family's ever graduated high school.
Yep.
So, you know, alcoholics, overweight, like you name it, right? And I remember being, as young as like 6 or 7 years old and looking at my family and going, this is not what I want. Because you see the other families and you go, why are they smiling?
Yeah.
Why are they driving a nice car? Why are they happy? So I remember the awareness at that young of age, and I just, something clicked for me, and I really didn't start taking action on it until I was maybe 13 or 14, where I started being active and getting fit. And to be honest, the reason that I took that attitude was because I really felt like I was a lazy person. Like when I was a kid, through my teenage years, I was fucking lazy. Like everyone else was doing things, I just didn't want to do it. It was very hard for me to pull myself out of the chair or pull myself out of the couch or whatever it is, because I was so unhealthy. I believe, looking back at it, I was so unhealthy as a kid. Like I ate like shit, and a lot of people do, but like I had no vitality, I had no energy. I didn't get outside. We didn't take vacations to the beach. I didn't go out on a boat. Like I lived inside. I played fucking video games, and I watched television. Like that was my reality as a child. But that's all I had around me. So once I started, 12 or 13, to realize that I didn't have to live that world. So really, from the time I was 7 years old, I was the lone wolf, right? Like I just did what I wanted. Like I was literally in the city like Sydney, which is Toronto, riding the subway, taking the bus. Like I got my bus pass, and I'm off, right? So I was very much like a lone wolf doing my thing, and that really gave me the independence to realize, like, hey, if something's going to change in your life, it's going to be you. And that's the blessing and curse of life, right? At the time, I resented my mom for going, hey mom, could you take me here? No. Like, that kind of shit. You're like, what the fuck? Like, why won't she help me? But looking back at it, you're like, God, that's the greatest gift she ever gave me, was the idea of like, you want something done, there's your feet, there's your shoes, go.
Yep.
So maybe that's where that came from. Really the idea and my framing as far as becoming a professional bodybuilder, I'm like, I don't know that I can ever be Mr. Olympia, although I believed I could be. But I do know that I can have everyone that I've ever trained with say I was the hardest working bodybuilder they ever worked with, and that's what I wanted. Like, so I literally remember moving to Gold's Gym in Venice, standing outside, taking a deep breath, and realizing, holy shit, you're here, you're about to go train. And I said, the second I walk through that door, I want everyone to know me as the hardest training bodybuilder, because I knew I was lazy. Like, I still believed I was a lazy person. So I was like, I never want that to happen. And any time there was like, something happening in the gym, I was like, I have to go and go and go. Like, I'm going to break you before you break me mentality. Not saying that's healthy or right, but that's just how I worked. And looking back on it, being competitive with other people helped, but it's not healthy, right? And that's why I was able to transcend this proverbial mountain of professional bodybuilding and make it all the way to the top and feel completely unfulfilled, feel completely inadequate being there. I was of the biggest in the world, absolutely shredded, and felt my most insecure and most inadequate sometimes, because I didn't see the daily value of, what I teach now is working out is your daily battleground for becoming a better human being. Like, don't go in the gym because I have to. Go in the gym because I get to, and I get to become a better person today.
Yeah.
Like, every single set, every single rep, every single breath is an opportunity for you to become better.
Yep.
And that's the framing now, right? And as soon as you make that framing in your life, things change for you. That changed for me when I had my son in 2012. I started, maybe a little earlier than that, I started having this awareness of, like, it was probably, say, 2010. Had this awareness of, it's not just about working hard, because you can get really, really big and still feel really, really shitty. And it's not about that. It's about feeling amazing. It's about creating that joy inside you, that achievement inside you, and then living into that, right? Creating that in your life, because that's the person you are.
Yep.
That's how I've been able to, shift away from that ultimate kid who needed bodybuilding because I was full of fear and inadequacy and just didn't feel like I was capable of those things. I used bodybuilding as a mechanism to allow me to transcend that, but now I do it because I love it. I go to the gym because it makes me feel great. It makes me feel like I've accomplished something. I challenge myself. Like, what am I bad at? Let's go.
Yeah.
Like, why am I here today? Because I suck at this. Am I insecure? Absolutely. Do I feel like I need to do it? Absolutely, right? And that's the framing that a lot of people maybe need to take, is like, when they find something they're bad at, they walk the other way. For me, when I see something I'm bad at, I'm like, put a smile on your face and go. Because that's how you make change, And it seems like Ito did the same thing. He's like, okay, I'm good at one or two things. Well, what are all the other things that I can add to this tool belt to make me amazing at a lot of, or maybe one particular thing?
He goes even further, man. He says this, like, before you even master something, before you get to that point of mastery, stop it and start something new. Because he talks about the biggest opportunity for growth, which Yanni and I and Richard absolutely agree with, is doing the things that you can't do at all.
Completely.
Because when you think about it, like, I mean, if that bottle represented all the skill that you could ever achieve in hand balancing, and maybe like down here is being able to do a handstand, and up here is like a one-armed handstand, and then up here is all the amazing one-arm handstand positions. Like, the time that it takes to get to that point there is probably half the time that it takes to get from there to there.
Right.
You know? But what's the point of working so hard at something to get such a small return on it? And I'm reciting Ido's words here. He talks about the idea of taking on, which we talk about a lot here as well, Shoshin, the beginner's mindset. It's a Japanese word, which refers to being the beginner and always just accepting that you're the beginner.
Just embracing the beginner's mindset even when you have reached a certain level of mastery in something, so that you're always looking for a new opportunity for growth. That's the concept.
It's an interesting thought there, right? So I know a lot of professional athletes. I train with a lot of professional athletes. I work with a lot of them. And they're such masters at one thing that if someone takes that away from them, they're all fucked.
That's right.
And it happens so often. Like, these guys are like, oh, I make all this money. Like, I don't wish that on people, man. Like, even what I did, that focus and mastery for 20 years on professional bodybuilding, I was just lucky enough to have synergistically developed a skill set and maybe a thought process and some skills and an education. But most people don't. And they get to, our age, 35, 40, whatever it is, and they go, fuck. Well, I have to learn everything. Everyone else is learning it at 17, and now you're 40 and you don't know basic life skills. That's the problem with mastery, right? Because you spend so much time moving the needle that much. And then all of a sudden everything else in your life has to, like you said, 5 hours of kung fu a day. Like, if you want to become a master, it's probably even more than that.
It is. It is more than that.
Yeah, and then what, right? And then what if something you realize, like, I break my leg, or I'm, like, and that's the same in bodybuilding. I realized that very early. One injury, you're done. Like, so in 2008, I just turned pro, and I had a contract given to me. They said, hey man, we really want you to be our athlete. I threw out some absurd number of how much I wanted, and they said, done. And I was like, fuck, I'm set. This is great. Like, I'm like, this is amazing. 5-6 months later, they pulled it. And I was like, because you're living the lifestyle, right? You're like, oh, I'm gonna have this forever. I'm great. They pulled it. All of a sudden, you're like, fuck, they can just do that? Like, yep. I was like, oh, so now I need to have other things here. Just like, that was a hard lesson for me at the time, but at the same time, a beautiful lesson, right?
Yeah.
Like, now you need to realize that just because you're making money doesn't mean you have anything.
Yeah, that's right.
They've got you ultimately, where they want you.
I love what you said earlier on as well about you don't go to the gym because you have to. You go to the gym because you want to.
Oh yeah.
I love that.
The framing is so important.
That's a privilege, and that's exactly right. I think, and this is something we try and teach our guys here. People come, they walk through the door, and the mentality for some reason that they're here to beat up the body that they dislike, with some hope that eventually they'll achieve something that they like.
Well, let's talk about that, right? So I teach that, right? So when I grew up, I trained angry. We've all trained angry.
Yeah,
I'm pissed. I'm gonna crush it. I'm gonna kill this workout today. No, you're not, right? So what I'm training my clients to do now is we're indoctrinating joy, happiness, and achievement.
Yeah.
So like when I'm going in to do my hardest set, I'm not thinking about who am I pissed off at. I'm not thinking about gritting my teeth and grinding it. I'm thinking about, I'm bringing a time into my life, or back into my brain, into my nervous system, when I was happy, when I was joyful, when I had a sense of achievement. I'm bringing that back into my nervous system and then going to do my set. So now I'm anchoring that feeling of joy, happiness, and achievement into my body every time I walk in the door. And that's ultimately what I teach my clients to do. The second you walk in the door of the gym, you're anchoring yourself to the person you're going to become when you walk in. So who is that person you're creating the second you walk in the door? Every time you pick up that weight, like I literally teach mindful training, right? So like when you physically reach down to pick up the weight, stop, put your hand on it, breathe, and who are you becoming? Bring something into your nervous system. It's not anger, because then if I anchor anger, guess what happens every time I pick up that weight, or every time I contract that muscle at home, or every time I look at that muscle? Anger. Inadequacy.
That's exactly.
Yep.
Man, I just got goosebumps. That's like exactly what I wanted to talk about today. I'm doing this mindset coaching course that we're building out online, and it's all about recognizing when you set a goal, recognizing the person you want to become, and really, really like getting a clear image of what that
Writing it
person
down.
looks like,
Yeah.
what that person acts like, how that person thinks. You know,
Right.
I talk about the diet being more than just what you consume for energy and that and nourishment. The things you read, the things you watch,
Sure.
the things you listen to, all of that. What does that person actually behave like on a day-to-day basis? And just when you step into the gym, becoming that person now.
And you have to feel it, right?
Yeah.
So thinking about it cerebrally is one thing, but the only way you make it reality is you feel it.
Yeah.
Which is why I've become such an advocate of meditation, because I can wake up in the morning and become any person I want just by bringing that emotion back into my body. What
Yeah.
a powerful thing, man! If it, like 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
And so my framing of 2019. So 2018 was a hard year for me, not actually relative to most people, but like it was a completely it was a growth year for me.
Yeah.
Like learning a lot. You know, got rid of a lot of staff, like trimmed all the fat in the business. You know,
Yeah.
a lot of things happened that are new for me. So my framing of 2000. So I felt like I was almost playing catch up. So my framing of 2019 is demand excellence. You know,
Yeah.
that's for my business, online, and in the gym, demand excellence. So all my team, every meeting on Tuesdays, we're talking about how can you demand excellence, and maybe what does that mean to you? What does it mean to you to demand excellence in the gym? What does it mean to you to demand excellence in your relationships, in your finances, in your hygiene, in your personal care, in your diet? All of those things. What does it mean to you to demand excellence? And to me, that's just like the highest standard of expectation for yourself, right? So what does that look like? And can you frame that every single morning when you wake up? And you know, we're only 15 days into the year now, and it's an amazing shift that can happen to your psychology almost overnight. And it takes a couple days for you to really like lock it in, because it takes creating that constant awareness of what does excellence look like. But that's what I'm doing, and I encourage everybody to jump on the
Absolutely.
kind of movement in 2019. What is excellence? And that's everything, right? In the way you speak, in the way you communicate with people, your relationships, the way you love somebody. Like, what does it look like to love somebody with all of your heart, with conviction? And that stuff is ultimately what's going to change people's lives. You know, the mask that I wear is this guy who's teaching people to build muscle, but ultimately the reality is, like, building muscle is bullshit. Building muscle is all this external avatar, right? What we're all after, whether you want to build muscle or whether you're trying to make money, we're all after some degree of accomplishment. We're all after a feeling. We all want to feel great, right? We want significance. We want to feel fulfilled. And if people can realize that, they can bypass the bullshit of, that I have to be 30 pounds heavier, 30 kilos heavier to be. No, you don't. You're already there, man. You just have to realize that every day is your daily opportunity to be the best version of yourself, and that is the changing of the framework that people need to create in their mind.
It's brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, and it's that idea of consistency and frequency that's going to produce those results. Like everybody wants it now, and I mean, this is what I struggled with when I was in my 30s. Like, you talk about the different person that you were. Like, when I was in my 30s, I was partying and doing drugs and drinking and training all the time, but just wasting a lot of time on the weekend, and just getting nowhere really compared to where I am now and what I've achieved in my 30s from making this big change, and just really understanding that it's consistency and frequency. It's not how fast you can sprint for a short period of time and then back it off and do something shit that doesn't get you there. And that whole idea of what you were just talking about, that every day is an opportunity to be your best self. And if you approach every day like that and create frequency in doing that and consistency of doing that over time,
man. And it's the 80-20 principle, right? It's like do 20% of the things that you think you should be doing. Like, find those things that work best for you. And it's different for everybody. I think we could probably make generalizations as to what everyone probably should be doing, but it's different for everybody, man. What fulfills me might not fulfill you, and find those 3 to 5 things that you need to do every day that make you feel fulfilled, make you feel accomplished, and allow you to bring that joy to the world. The guy that we brought in here today, a great friend of mine, he's this amazing, we talked about manifesting, he's this amazing manifester because...
Mick?
Yeah, Mick. Yeah. And it's not anything miraculous that he's doing. The reason he manifests is because he's so full of joy that when people are around him, they're like, fuck, that's infectious. I want to be like you. He's so confident. He's so full of joy. He loves life. And people go, whatever that guy's going, I'm going to follow. Like whatever he's eating, like I'm going to eat that. Because they're like, oh, there's something magic in the water. No, he just fucking creates joy in his life, right? And that's the infectious reality of his life and the idea of manifesting. Like he brings people into his life every day, and just because everyone else ultimately is trying to bring that joy into the life, he's already got it, and they're like, I want that Kool-Aid, you know, whatever that is. So you know, whoever's after these things, like, realize it's just a matter of creating it in your mind first. Like, bring it into your nervous system. Be a joyful person. Be a happy person. Be someone who can bring that feeling of achievement back at will, whatever that is for you, and your life will change, because the people that need to show up will show up, right? The people that want to help you will help you. So it's, I mean,
very interesting you say that. There's something you said something to me many years ago when we first met that completely changed my life. You wouldn't have known this, but when we were out, I think we went to the Ivy Pool Bar and we were chatting.
I wouldn't
a couple
go
of glasses
bar,
of
Yanni.
wine.
Come on, man.
And I was showing him the sights in Sydney. And you said something. I was actually going through a really tough time at that point in my life. I'd broken up with a really long-term girlfriend, and I was dealing with the psychology around that and everything. And there was one thing that you said to me that completely changed my life, which was, I was talking about, you know, finding a new girlfriend, and you said, stop, don't look for a girlfriend. Make yourself, you know, don't look for a 10 out of 10. Make yourself a 10 out of 10, and 10s will dive at you, you know.
They'll flock.
Yeah, they'll flock. And I really took that to heart, and I went back, because I had, you know, been on this quest to find, I was like, you know, just so wanted to settle down with the right person and find the right person, and I completely backflipped and just went really internally and started to analyze who I was as a person, how I showed up, and just worked on myself. And it's phenomenal the difference that made to my life. Everything had a snowballing effect to where we are now. I'm marrying the most beautiful woman in the world.
Well, the funny thing
and
is,
I've got 2 beautiful children, you know, we got a thriving business. It's just phenomenal. So that's one little comment, and it's sort of in aligns with what you're saying there. You
The
know?
funny thing is that Kalisha actually did the same exercise, but unfortunately she ended up with you. So it
Doesn't always work.
Doesn't always work out, yeah.
Right.
She
So
got a 9.
There's another lesson there, right? It's like, and I teach this to everybody. I sit down most mornings, maybe 3 or 4 days a week with my kids, and we talk about happiness. And you know, most kids, well, my kids are 5 and 7, think that happiness is a toy, happiness is a cookie, happiness is all these things outside of yourself. And you know, I realize that human beings, and you guys get this, always are trying to accomplish, we're trying to acquire, we're trying to transcend, or we're trying to, you know, ascend this proverbial mountain, right? We want to accumulate muscle, we want to accumulate money, whatever it is. We all want the things that are outside of ourselves for that instant hit of happiness. It's bullshit, man. Like, happiness is not outside of yourself. Happiness is inside of yourself. And when you turn the journey inside, you realize that you don't need someone else in your life, man, to be happy, to be fulfilled. You're just looking for something outside of yourself, just like a woman looks at a bag or a pair of shoes or a cookie, whatever. Like, you're looking for those things outside of yourself to feel fulfilled and complete, when the only way to feel fulfilled and complete is inside. And like, how do I make myself feel better, more confident, and realize that I'm everything I ever need? And then that person shows up because she sees you're not seeking. She wants that stability that you bring, because, gosh, this guy's got his shit together. He realizes how great he is. He sees his inner light, and then she'll see it too, right? If you can't see it, she can't see it. And that's the beauty of life, man. It's like, stop looking outside of yourself. You know, I've got to the top of the world in the most egocentric sport known to man, and it's because I needed it. I needed the punch in the face to realize that lesson. You know, there were so many times when I was standing there, and like, my fear and my inadequacy just grew the bigger I got, and the closer I got to the top of the world. And I'm just very blessed to have been able to, you know, many people in life are chasing something and they never get it. So they're constant. They have to keep chasing. Like, oh gosh, and once I get it, I'm going to get there. Once I make the $1 million or the 100 million, whatever it is, once I get the muscle, it's fucking bullshit. It doesn't matter. Right? I got it. Like, I got to the top of the world. I could have been very close to being Mr. Olympia. Doesn't do anything, man. Like, just like making the millions won't get you what you want. You know, you have to create it now, create the happiness now. You know, all those things will come, just like that did, right?
That's exactly right.
That's it, man. It's always inside.
It's interesting how the things that you want will be attracted to you. I mean, I know, like, the law of attraction, all that sort of thing. I'm not a big fan of manifestation, then sitting and just meditating and not doing anything, not taking action. But it is really quite phenomenal how, when you really go inside and work on yourself and work on embetterment and empowerment and just progress, things just start to gravitate to you. You know, like the things that you want. It's
because you're complete, right?
Yeah,
You're
that's
like,
exactly
man,
right.
I'm so happy with the person I am. I'm so happy with the life that I have.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, those things around you just like start to get better. You're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Wow.
like, yeah, I'm so happy. Like, if you're not starting with your day with a gratitude practice, I don't fucking open my eyes
Yeah.
until I've been grateful for 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Like, my daughter sleeps beside me many nights. Like, she'll crawl in bed with us, and like, I can't possibly open my eyes until I reach over and I have the biggest, kid smile on my face and go, holy shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm the luckiest man in the world. Thank you.
Yeah.
Like, in my and I teach that to my kids every day. It's like, I'm so thankful for, I'm so grateful for, and you just keep doing it and doing it and doing it, and the circle grows, So I do 3 minutes. Try doing that for 3 minutes, and it's just like, I'm so thankful for this. I'm so thankful for this. So you end up getting, 30 to 50 things in 3 minutes,
Yep.
and it's just like boom, 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 and then your brain just goes, holy shit! Like, I've got so much around me. That's awesome.
Yep.
Rather than waking up and going, fuck, I got to pay bills. Fuck, I got to check my email. I got a
Yeah.
job. Like, man, yes,
Big
like,
time.
yes, you
Yeah.
get, yes, you have bills. That means you're accomplishing them. You're able to pay them.
Yeah.
I have like a $30,000 a month net payroll. Like, fuck, that's a stressful thing. But I'm like,
Yeah.
I get to. That's a pretty cool thing. Like,
That's right.
yeah. So you be grateful for that stuff. Yeah, man. It's always just how you frame life, and we can create a great life, or we can create a stressful one. And there's always, don't get me wrong, I'm not perfect. It's always an ebb and flow, right? There's days
Yeah.
where like, oh, I need to get back to my gratitude and meditation
Yeah.
because things just go better, man. Things just
Yeah.
go better.
I do exactly the same. I do it morning and evening actually, because
Yeah.
I find it's a really nice way to move into a parasympathetic state before you go to bed and
Yeah.
switch off the stress mechanism. DHA production in the body gets rid of all the cortisol. You know how it works. But I also am a big fan of affirmations, positive affirmation and stuff like that in the morning. My morning routine is like starts with a gratitude, freezing cold shower, just to really stimulate
Same as
the
me, man.
body. Really? Yeah,
Yeah.
awesome. Then
30 seconds. I just stand there for like, it's only 30 seconds, but I'll
Yeah,
stand there
yeah.
for 30 seconds, like, and
Yeah.
just get in-
Absolutely, I do exactly the same. I try and do a
only
minute.
just started doing the cold showers a
Really?
couple weeks ago. Yeah,
Oh
it's
man, I
amazing.
love it. I can't
It's
live
pretty-
without it anymore.
Yeah. It's only
Yeah.
the first 5 seconds it's actually that hard.
Yeah.
You go, wow, like that, and then you go, ah. And then when you get out, you're like, whoa.
I
It is
do-
summer though, so we'll see what it's like in winter.
Yeah,
It's very different.
It's
in winter.
very different in
Very
winter,
different in
yeah.
winter.
But it's
Whatever
still
it's on.
so good, like it really is. And then I go out and I do my, I only do 5 minutes of meditation. I'm still not a master at meditation by
So
any
there's
means.
an app that's been life-changing for me, man. It's like I've meditated for 10 years, but 10 minutes, Sam Harris, if you don't know who Sam Harris
Yep,
is.
yeah, I know who
So
Sam
his
Harris
app is
is.
called Waking Up, and I'm not affiliated anyway. Like, it's just amazing. So to
Yep.
do 10 minutes, and he's got 50 or 60, maybe more than that, daily 10-minute meditations. And he's just so great for a beginner at teaching you how to actually get into a meditative state, like
Yeah.
telling you exactly what to focus on. It's just, and he's got a brilliant progression built in. It's just perfect for
Yeah.
someone waking up.
Waking up, Sam
Yeah.
Harris.
If you don't know Sam Harris, man, like listeners, Sam
Yeah,
Harris is
he's
amazing.
amazing. Yeah.
One of the most brilliant people on the planet. And that brings up a topic that I love to talk about. And I think we talked about this when we went out to dinner. That, two people who I respect most on the planet, or of the two people I respect most on the planet, Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris, both talk about how their relationships, the reason they've been able to become so successful is they have a relationship with their wife, with their spouse, founded in honesty, grounded in honesty. And like, they have made commitments, and many people make a false commitment, but a commitment to themselves to only tell the truth. And
Yep.
there's so much power in that.
Yeah.
Like, gosh, living on a ground that's stable and is truthful is, I think, it's my next phase. It's like, because we all tell little white lies, or we soften things a little bit. Like, imagine having a life that was grounded in truth
Yeah.
exclusively, and having the people all around you know that. So I think that's challenging at first, because people don't always want to hear the truth,
Yeah.
but then don't ask.
Yeah.
I think the right people will come to you, who are like, the only way you can get better.
Yeah.
The only way you can get better is you have someone that's honest.
Yeah.
If you have someone blowing smoke up your butt all the time, you don't change.
Yeah.
You don't get better. If you're always, just to use Jordan Peterson's term, like swiping the dragon under the rug, it's going to grow. It's going to feed it, right? It's going to grow. And then
absolutely.
all of a sudden, oh shit, there's this huge problem, but we didn't tell each other the truth on it because now it's this big, and all of a sudden marriage fails, right? Honesty has to start with the small things, like, hey, I didn't like that you did that. Like, hey, I would appreciate if you helped me with this. Like, those small communications that are the hard ones, those are the ones we need to have. So have you read 12 Rules for Life?
I haven't read 12 Rules for Life, but I've read.
Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, I've read Crucial Conversations, which was a brilliant book.
Who's that?
Oh God, I think I might even have a copy of it up there on the shelf.
He was a co-writer of it.
Yeah.
He just had read a couple other ones.
Yeah, he's a co-writer.
Oh.
He's involved in this.
That's Patterson.
Oh, Patterson,
Yeah.
not Peterson. Oh, okay. This is it's basically
That's
just
very cool.
just-
Great book.
Yeah, really
Yeah,
good.
okay.
But it's all about this. It's about really just opening communication, and I should just put that on the desk there. But and exactly that. You know, I mean, they sort of talk a little bit on the physiological states that occur in the body when you are not just bullshitting, but not telling the truth. It has a physical impact
Sure.
on your body. It's not just psychological,
Right.
you know. And you,
So that's-
I've never even considered the concept of, because I light a cliche all the time, like it's just a part of it.
Well, you probably do, but it's not like
No,
harmful
yeah.
wise.
Yeah,
It's
that's
always
right.
like with a positive framing.
Yeah.
Like, oh, yes, let's
That-
just
that
trying to
new- that
appease,
new
right?
bikini does look good, okay?
Yeah, well, no, it's always little stuff like that,
Yeah,
right? It's
yeah,
like,
that's
yes,
right.
babe, I love these Brussels sprouts. God, they're fucking terrible, right? Like, and it has to be honesty, because
Yeah.
she can't get better, you can't get better if it's not grounded
Yeah.
in honesty. So talking about what happens in the nervous system, right? If I have fear over a conversation with you and I don't have it, if you haven't read The Body Keeps the Score, that's what they talk about. It's like,
Yep.
so every time you have an emotion that exists that you don't express or mobilize with your movement or exercise, it lives in your body. Like
Yep.
you develop an energy signature, so it lives in your nervous system. It creates a muscular tension pattern. So you see people that walk around this way.
Yep.
That's just a muscular signature that exists in your body. And every time that situation happens, it can make it worse and worse
Yep.
and worse.
Yep.
So you just end up getting these pathologies in your body, or you end up getting energy blockages. So disease and illness happens, and like that stuff's real, man. So when
Yeah.
you can just have that conversation, when it's this big, if it prevents it from getting this big in your body, and then when it gets this big in your body, that's when like I have a heart attack, or I have anxiety, like because I have so
Right.
much angst over those little conversations that I didn't have with you. Then you have a blowout, right? Then you
Yeah.
have to express. You have no choice,
Yeah.
rather than just a little one. Like, yeah, it's going to hurt a little bit, but at least it's not going to be a blowout, right?
Yeah.
Those are the conversations we need to have as people, man. And again, I'm not perfect, man. Like, I'm learning, but it's something I'm really learning to express with my children, because teaching your children when they have that like guarded fear response. No,
Yeah.
no, come here.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, you have a safe environment to talk to me. I'm not going to react. I'm not getting angry. Like, let it out. And then
Yeah.
teaching them to let that out as soon as they can becomes a habit. Then
Yeah.
they're expressive rather than like constricted, right? And you can see it. Like, you're an analytical thinker like me. I'll look at people's posture. I'll look at people's body, and I'll go, ooh,
Yeah,
I see that. Like,
absolutely.
people who walk like this, like
Yeah.
they just slight elevation. I'm
Yeah.
like, ooh, a really tight pelvis, or like any type of dysfunction. You're like, so that's why movement is such a big part of life, is expressing those emotions that are living in you, getting rid of them, feeling them.
Yeah.
It's a big part of life. So you get it, man. You see somebody standing there, you're like, I'm not going anywhere near you, whether it's conscious or otherwise. Like, we all do it unconsciously, right?
Yeah.
You look at somebody's beautiful posture, their beautiful physique, we associate it with a strong mind, because their mind has to be strong for their body to look that way.
Yeah.
If they have a weak mind, you can see this kind of stuff happening, or the arms don't swing as much, or the sway changes in their movement. And that's why human beings unconsciously are so drawn to movement and exercise and athletes, because that is a strong representation of a strong mind.
Yeah.
I love a quote from Arnie. He says, the thing about a good physique is that it doesn't lie, and so when you walk around with a good physique,
Yep.
everybody can
Knows.
see that you have a good work ethic and that you're a disciplined person and that you do it, because you can't look that way if you're not disciplined and you
Right.
don't have a good work ethic.
That was one of the coolest things about being a bodybuilder that people don't know, right? Is like, you walk into any room, respect,
Yeah.
Yeah.
instant. Like the perks, it's crazy. It's like you're a celebrity, right? No matter if you are or not. Like, you're getting bumped to first class, you're getting free meals, you're getting like anything you want. People just take care of you. It's a conscious or unconscious, just respect, right? People just and like, it's not something I talk about a lot, but it's there. Like, there's no question that bodybuilders get privileges that other people don't. So that's like, a side benefit, I guess, but that people don't think about. But it's certainly an amazing thing when you look at somebody who's got one of the best physiques in the world. Like, they get shit that normal people don't.
Yeah.
And that's a draw for people who, lean toward bodybuilding. It sometimes keeps them there. But it's an interesting thing how human beings are always just judging unconsciously.
This is something that we should just I'd like to finish on anyway, because not many professional bodybuilders that achieve the level that you did make a conscious decision to stop. It's usually a forced decision.
Sure.
And I think that's a really big deal, and it's something that you should be acknowledged for, because of exactly what you just tipped on. Like, it's a very hard lifestyle to give up, to just one day say, you know what, this isn't for me, I want to focus on these areas of my life, and you give up a lot. If it's not just the physical like size and I mean, there's certainly egos attached to that, because you're like, boom, I'm one of the biggest and strongest people in the world. The perks, the lifestyle, all of that sort of stuff, and is that something that you would care to go into a little bit?
I'd love to.
Like
so first of all, speaking to it, like when I retired from bodybuilding, I decided I wanted to lose a bunch of muscle. Like, I'm going to get small, I want to get healthy. So for my decision to leave was health, right? Like, my health was perfect, but I want to keep it that way.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I want to lose a bunch of muscle. And then I started to lose a bunch. I mean, I lost 60 pounds, so 25, almost 30 kilos, and felt great and felt amazing. But people were like, oh, what happened to him?
Yeah.
So unconsciously, I was like, oh, well, like, I need to start training more. So I ended up putting another 10 kilos back on, just like training hard again. And it wasn't like I just went from training twice a week to training 4 times a week, and all of a sudden, bang, because your body just remembers it.
Yeah.
So I'm still fighting that battle too, man, because you do lose that little bit of like immediate respect that I've been used to unconsciously for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, okay, so like, truthfully now I want to get smaller, but I realize now it's not necessarily even smaller. It's just like, I just want to be lean all the time.
Yeah.
So that's the new quest, is like, how do you live 8% body fat or less all year round? Which just started for me January 1st. Like, let's start winding this down. And what does it look like to live at under 8% and not be neurotic about your health and fitness? Not be neurotic about your nutrition.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be neurotic. I don't want to be weighing shit anymore. I did that for 20 years. Like, how can I eat really, really nutritious, healthy foods in adequate amounts that nourishes my body and still have, be lean enough to feel great?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's part. But speaking to why or how I retired, 2012, I was on top of the world, man. Like, probably when I was here, right?
Yeah.
I was, just finished 4th place at the Arnold Classic, qualified for the Mr. Olympia. For, second time I qualified, first time I'd done it, and people are like, man, keep going. You're gonna be the next Mr. Olympia. And I believed it. Like, nothing in my mind was. That's the thing with me from day one is everyone goes, you can't do this, man. Like, you don't have the genetics to be a bodybuilder. Everything, and there wasn't even like an inkling of doubt in my mind that I was going to be a professional bodybuilder. There was never an inkling of doubt in my mind that I was going to be Mr. Olympia. I will do whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah.
And I knew I was smart enough. I knew I had the people around me. I knew I had the work ethic. Like, whatever it's going to take, I'm going to do it. And I'm so blessed that I was sent an angel, right? I was sent my son in 2012. And he allowed me for the first time to have a little bit of perspective on life. Because in 2012, man, I was single-mindedly focused on being Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
Nothing else. Like, anyone that came into my life, it was literally the conversation, like, this is who I am, this is what I do. If you can make that better, I would love for you to stay, because I will make your life better. If you can't make that better, or if you're going to hold me back, there's the door.
Yeah.
It's literally that clear. And I wasn't ever malicious about it, but like, you ask my wife, I had that conversation with her. I was like, if you can make this life better, fucking awesome. Like, we didn't go on a date for 8 months. Like, we just went to the gym and came to my house, and like, that's it. But she just,
Kind of like the conversation we had about business.
Yeah. Well, he has to be, right? Like, this is who I am. This is what anyways, if you want to be the best at something, you can't be sidetracked, because you'll fail.
Yeah.
And then she fell pregnant, we talked about, and my life changed. Nothing else in the world, literally nothing else in the world, short of having a child, would have pulled me off track. And even after the first one, I was like, I can still do this. Like, I can still be Mr. Olympia. I can do that with his son, right?
Yep.
And then did the Olympia. I did a guest posing in Hawaii. My wife got pregnant again, and girlfriend, now wife. I was like, okay, 2 kids.
Yeah.
This is your sign, man. And I said, I don't know if I said this to you, but like, the instant I held my daughter, I was done.
Yeah,
that was
really.
2013 in July. I was done. I had this rush of emotion. So I briefly mentioned my childhood, and I don't want to go into that stuff, but I never felt loved as a child. Like, I didn't know what love was. And the instant I had my daughter, I realized what unconditional love was.
Yeah.
And I no longer felt inadequate. I no longer felt like I needed to do bodybuilding. I no longer felt like I could be the selfish person anymore.
Yeah.
So that's really where it started, man. And I still continue to compete for 2.5 years after that, but only because I just didn't want to leave with regrets.
Yeah.
And I made up my mind that I was going to retire at 35. I made up my mind before I'd ever got my pro card that I was going to retire at 35, because I knew that once you start pushing it as a pro, like you're hitting those top levels and you're starting to win shows and really place, you've really got a 5-year shelf life of health.
Yeah.
Beyond that, I could have pushed for another 5 years, but my health would have started to deteriorate.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay. So once I hit 30, I was like, all right, let's go. 35, I'm done. And that's just literally the way it worked. And I felt so great about leaving bodybuilding, because my greater purpose was being the best dad in the world and creating an amazing business where I could impact other people. And it's been easy. People ask if I want to go back. It doesn't even cross my mind, man.
Yeah.
And intentionally in 2016, I did 5 shows. Because I was like, I want to let it out. I want to get it all out, man.
Yeah,
I want to get it all out, do as many as I can, know that I've left my best, play with some things, experiment with some things, learn some things so I can pass on the wisdom. And that was it, man. And I'm completely okay. I will never go back to professional bodybuilding.
Yeah.
I just don't need it anymore. Like, I don't have that internal need to be externally validated. It's just not there.
Yeah.
So, and
Now you've got so much time for calisthenics.
Yeah, man, let's get some mobility. Sorry if that was a long-winded answer. But
No, that was
yeah.
absolutely
No, man,
awesome.
that's awesome.
Look, in all
Honest.
honesty, this is the thing. You won so much respect from me just for the sheer fact that you made the decision to do it, and it's hard to step away from something like that, and I respect that immensely.
I was at my peak, man. I was getting better.
This is
right?
exactly right.
Yeah, I was
you
continuously getting better, but I lost that purpose. You know, when I would go into the gym in 2012 and prior, I had a purpose. Like,
Yeah.
I knew I was going to be Mr. Olympia, and I was just driven. I'd run through walls, right?
Yeah.
And after having my children, I'd go to the gym and go, why am I here? I'd so much rather be at home loving them. Like,
Yeah.
why am I here? I would
Yeah.
say, like, I opened a Palace, right? I opened a gym, which is, at the time
Yeah.
was considered one of the best, maybe still is one of the best gyms in the world. And I built it to my specifications. Like, every piece in there was exactly what I wanted. Everything was designed the way I wanted.
Yeah.
And by the time it was open, my heart wasn't in it, man. Like, how can you walk to the gym and go, well, how even can I get home?
Yeah.
And I built the gym intentionally with a really big daycare so I could bring my kids. I'm like, well, I'm not going to go, once I had built, like, my idea was big daycare, bring the kids to the gym, put them in the daycare, go train.
Yeah.
Right. So you're going to go out there and squat while your little babies are in the next room. Like, not going to happen,
Yeah,
focus-wise,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like, not going to happen. So that,
Yeah.
I think they've been
It's
in.
hard, isn't it?
Oh, it's impossible. So I was like, forget it. I don't need this anymore. So let's
Yeah.
build something else that's great.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And that is your MI40 Nation and the MI40 program. What else are you working on at the moment?
I'm doing a bunch of things. So the whole first half of 2019, I'm going to be on the road doing seminars.
Yeah.
We're basically doing a world tour, myself and Dr. Jordan Shallow.
Who's an insanely smart guy, by the way. If you don't know of him, look him up. I had a conversation for about 15 minutes out there, and we could have sat there chatting all day. Amazing.
So we're just doing the world tour for the first half until basically mid-June. And then the second half of the year, we're finishing my book. So I started a book the last half of last year, just all these integrated pieces, of like how to build your greatest body, but all the other things that goes into living a healthy, holistic life while building the body of your dreams. And
Yep.
I think people need to know that stuff. Like, it doesn't have to be unhealthy. It doesn't need to be anchored in negative emotions. And I think
Yep.
I'd love to be the person who becomes a spokesperson for that, right? It's
Yep.
like, it can be a joyful process. Like, it should be a joyful process. Your body is a gift.
Yeah.
So enjoy this gift, embrace the gift. So that's happening. And I'm launching muscleintelligence.com. That's kind of the business. I've got a podcast that's relatively popular. Most people have heard of it at this point in the fitness industry. So previously called Muscle Expert. We're just going to shift. They call it Muscle Intelligence because
Yep.
that's the business.
Yep.
And it's just providing an intelligent approach to build your greatest body, man.
Yeah.
And all those pieces that go into it, right? All the talking about the movements and talking about mobility and talking about autonomic nervous system and sleep and nutrition and the environment and mindset and all those things going into this beautiful synergy of being able to ultimately interview the world's most epic humans,
Yeah.
which is just a blessing, right? Like,
Yeah,
how awesome is it to be
absolutely.
able to call up the smartest people in the world and go, hey, man, you want to chat for 90 minutes, like
Yeah.
fuck yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like a PhD in fitness and mindset, you know.
Yeah.
So
That's brilliant.
yeah, it's awesome.
Awesome, man. Well, look, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show today, and I'm sure that Kalisha's going to be busy over the next week creating a lot of insightful pieces of content that we can deliver on every single platform around the world. No, man, it's just been amazing.
Thanks, man.
Thank you so much for giving
I
us your
appreciate you
time.
guys having me. It's just worked out perfectly, right? I love that you
Yeah.
guys made some time, and just happened to be in town, and grateful to get a workout in
Yeah,
and,
man, it was fun
and
training.
reconnect. And I strongly, no endorsement from you, or no request from these guys, but I strongly advise you guys to get out there and try it, because these programs are amazing. And I think it's an addition to everyone's program. The beautiful thing is, at least the way I see it, you may not be asking everybody to change the way they train. Like, just keep doing what you're doing, but add this to it as an adjunct, at least to start, right?
Yeah,
Like,
that's right.
yeah, try this 15-minute program. It's amazing. Like, I felt amazing. My joints feel amazing. My mobility feels better. My nervous system feels turned on. My brain feels turned on. And that's something that most people would kill for. And if you can do that in 15 minutes a day, and then, add that to your daily routine. For me, it seems like it'd be a great synergy, and I said this to you on the gym floor. Like, I wake up in the morning, I do my gratitude, I do my meditation, and then I move. So that may be walking, that may be yoga, that may be whatever. But if I can add this 15 to 30-minute piece in there, where like just all I need is like some bands and maybe a wooden dowel, like,
Yeah.
yes,
Cool, man.
sign me up, dude.
Right.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Okay.
Fantastic. All right.
Well, until next time, everyone. We'll see you guys later.
Yeah. Awesome.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.